While some runners out there still wonder whether carbon even belongs in a trail shoe, Hoka made a shoe with double carbon fiber plates. This is the Tecton X. .24 miles and over 2,200 feet of gain, running in the Mines of Spain State Park in Dubuque, Iowa, and taking the Tecton X for an extended first run. Now, before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. Hoka sent me these shoes for the purpose of review. However, they're not paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Hoka Tecton X. First, let's go over some specs. This is a 33 millimeter stack height shoe with a 4 millimeter drop, giving us 29 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot. And we've got a lot to talk about in terms of what's all going in the forefoot of this shoe. As far as the foams go, we've got ProFly Plus, which is the updated version to the ProFly midsole system that we've seen used to great success in other Hoka shoes. But this updated version uses supercritical EVA for part of that system, giving you extra sponginess on impact. And then the other portion of the midsole is a EVA midsole foam that gives you a little bit of extra responsiveness when you are pushing up off the ground. And within this shoe, there are those double carbon fiber plates. Now there's two carbon fiber plates arranged in a parallel alignment, so that way, whether you're landing a little bit on your side, one way or the other, when you're on the trails, you're always going to be able to have some additional level of stability and support in this shoe. Now moving to the outsole of the shoe, we have Vibram Mega Grip Light Base in a 4 millimeter lug configuration. It looks to me a lot like what we saw last year on the Hokas and all, and that was an outsole that I really enjoyed for running fast through the trails, and we're seeing the same thing here in this carbon plated trail racer. Moving to the upper, we have a double jacquard mesh, which is nice and comfortable. And I love to see it in these Hoka trail shoes, this expansion panel, which we've also seen in the Hoka Speed Goat fiber this year. It helps the shoe maintain a nice level of fit and snugness when you are trying to move quickly, but also as your feet expand later in the day on those longer trail runs, the shoe expands with your foot. In the tongue, we have just a very minimal amount of mesh padding, and it comes down really short, which is something that I've been enjoying in this notched tongue that Hoka has been using across a wide variety of its shoes in the lineup. As far as the heel cup is concerned, it's relatively floppy back here, not too much structure, and just a little bit of padding. Reminds me a lot of the Rincon 3. So we're seeing a lot of different successful pieces of other Hoka shoes all kind of merged into this brand new shoe, the Tecton X. But in terms of running in this shoe, I will have to say that it is definitely more than the sum of its parts. I really enjoyed the Tecton X when I had it out there on the trails. I feel like that ProFly Plus midsole with the carbon fiber plate is a really nice, comfortable combination to have on the trails. I thought that this was going to be kind of a really aggressive trail racer with the dual carbon fiber plates, but to me, me, it felt more like a shoe that I could take for an ultra distance race, or I could take with me out for a really long day out in the trails. I did feel the carbon fiber just a little bit. It felt very mild to me for the most part. I didn't really kind of notice it in an aggressive or obtrusive way at all, except for when I was going downhill or when I was going through rollers. That's where I felt like it gave me a nice little kind of pop, a nice little extra something that was in the shoe that made it feel a little bit more peppy, a little bit more lively as I was going through some of those speedier sections. But when I didn't need kind of like the springiness of carbon as I'm going through parts that are a little bit more technical, a little bit more twisty, I just felt like I had a really comfortable trail shoe underfoot, and I felt very stable the entire time. Now, something that aids in the stability of this shoe is the fact that it has a very wide footprint. So based on kind of like the width of the shoe itself, there's a lot of foam that still extends beyond kind of like the silhouette of your foot. And what that does is it kind of gives you kind of like a snowshoe effect where there's more surface area underfoot with each step. And I think that really helps with the stability. And yet at the same time, even though the rocker on this shoe isn't very aggressive, I still feel like the shoe is very nimble, despite the fact that it's tall, despite the fact that it's wide, because I think that's the foams and the double carbon fiber plates all working together to make a trail shoe that kind of just lets you glide over the rocks and dance over the terrain without really having to think too much about the shoes, and without feeling like the shoes are fighting you or nudging you, pushing you in any sort of way. So it was a really agreeable shoe. It was just like ready for whatever the trails had to throw at me on this particular day. Now, the only thing that I didn't love about this shoe was the fit. Now, I'm normally a US men's size 9. Hoka sent me for review a size 9.5. Now, I don't know why they sent me the 9.5. I'm suspecting that most people probably will not need to size up on this shoe, especially because of the fact that there's this expansion panel in the middle. Hoka, I hope you keep putting this in more shoes because I absolutely love it everywhere I see it. This one isn't quite as stretchy as the expansion panel that's in the Speedgoat 5, but it's still doing that same function where it's just giving you a little bit more room, a little bit more volume overall in the toe box. But when I'm sized up from a 9.5 from my normal size 9, I felt like I was sliding around just a little bit, and I felt like these laces had to come in like a lot. Like they're almost like touching in terms of each of these sides. And that's always like a big pet peeve of mine. It's kind of like a telltale sign that the fit is wrong, is when these two sides of the shoe are kind of like touching. So I think that for me, a size 9 is probably going to be the right size. And I'm going to recommend for most of you guys to go with your regular running shoe size when you're looking at this shoe. That being said, if you know your feet swell a lot, or if you've got a little bit of a wider foot and you normally size up in some of your longer distance trail shoes, then I think that you're going to be very happy with that size up. For me, what it meant was two things. One, I was sliding around a little bit on some of the more technical parts of the trails that I was in, whether it was a steep downhill, steep uphill, or scrambling over some of the rocky parts of the trail that I was on. That ultimately led, over the course of the 17 miles that they had this shoe out for, was some pretty gnarly blisters by the end of the day. So I had a little bit of discomfort kind of like behind my big toe on the right foot. And I think that's just because it wasn't the right size shoe for me. The other thing that I felt was that I think that I got a little bit less of that kind of like race feel that this shoe is supposed to have from being about a half size up. So I take that very, very seriously. And I think that only in the most kind of like severe instances should you really think about sizing up or down from a shoe. Now, I know that there's some of you who are kind of in between sizes, and so you're constantly fighting that battle, and that's one thing. But I think there's a lot of people that are just very casually sizing up or sizing down shoes, and I think that it really affects the way that the shoe is supposed to feel and what your opinions on that shoe are going to be. I am going to go back and try and get a size 9, my regular size in the Tecton X when this comes out May 1st, just so that I can compare it and make sure I'm experiencing the shoe kind of as intended. And I'll do some updates once I get that different size in for testing. Hit the subscribe button so you could see that video when it releases. So ultimately, I do really like this shoe. I think it has a lot of promise. It definitely still gives me that Mach 4 for the trails kind of vibe, and it's definitely a shoe that I would want to run ultra marathons in. I'm not sure if I would necessarily pick it over the Speedgoat 5. I'm gonna have to do a lot more testing in both of those shoes because I'm really enjoying both of them this year. But ultimately, I feel like Hoka has two hit trail shoes, whether you're looking to race an ultramarathon distance or you just want a shoe that you can bring with you pretty much any day that you're going to be out on the trails. The Tecton X and the Speedgoat 5 are both going to be able to make a lot of people very happy. If you have any questions about the Tecton X, feel free to put them in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube. I'd love to talk to you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?